Hello and welcome to the Trusted Podcast. I'm Blake Johnson, your host, and today I've got Kim Snyder on the call, and she is going to be talking about marketing and strategy. And so, Kim, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Blake. So happy to be here.
All right, Kim, let's just jump right into it. Give me a little bit about your background, how you got into this, and what makes you an expert in your field.
Yeah, I spent, 20 plus years in corporate America doing, business growth and strategy. I walked the path. I did the technical path. I did training, transformation, strategy, project development. You did it. Rolled out large enterprise projects for customers all over the world. I worked from analyst to CEO and everything in between. And so about that time, I started my career. I also started down this kind of entrepreneurial journey, and I started my first business in college. It was an accounting and tax business with one of my best friends, and so I always had that entrepreneurial blood. I started my company 10 years ago, even when I was still working for somebody else, and I knew there was a point when I was going to leave, and I was really lucky. I didn't hate my corporate job. I just didn't want to travel every week. So, I think I counted. It was like 2 million miles later and like 50,000 hotel room stays. I just didn't want to do that anymore. So, after working for small companies and big companies, I just thought, well, let me just combine those two loves and those two skill sets. And, I was really good at it. I got results. And so now that's kind of where we're at with Online Marketing in Box, is we do business growth and strategy. We focus on revenue streams, marketing, and time. Because what happens is most owners struggle with, they figure out that their business isn't working because it hits them in their P&L, right, in their profit and loss statement, or they're working too hard so it hits them in the time, or they're not spending the right dollars on marketing, which hits in their P&L. So that's kind of my path to get there. Been in Vegas for 20 years, and I've been in town for almost 2 years straight, which again was a nice mix when I didn't do that for the prior 18 years.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel. I know it can wear on you. I only have to travel twice a month, and that's more than enough for me.
Yeah, I used to have to travel to 2 or 3 cities in a week, and it wasn't always like, oh, just hit the East Coast and come back. It could have been crazy, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, and back home. So yeah, I don't miss that.
Okay, so let's start with marketing. Where are you seeing people get the best return on their investment for marketing? Is it something that's across the board, or is it specific to industries? Kind of talk to that.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. It's a little bit of both. So first of all, I would say the most powerful medium right now would be video, right? So we're doing video, audio, everything, and audio is the next one, and then written is the third. Video is the most important because you really get that know, like, and trust factor. You can see people on the camera. You can understand that what they're saying is congruent and consistent with messaging, and you get to like them. It's the next best thing to being in person. I did an internship at the IRS in college, and my mentor there was like, okay, Kim, you have to go out to every place that we want to do an audit for. And I said, why? Because he said, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And it is, right? So if somebody tells you they're making $10,000 and you drive up and they have 20 Mercedes sitting there and flat screens, so you want to make sure it's consistent and congruent. So I would say video is probably the biggest factor right now, and it has been like that for a couple years. And I think now, we're in COVID, but it doesn't matter if there's a natural disaster or something else that's happening either internal in your company and you can't travel. Video is still the most powerful. And so people think about it from a marketing outside perspective. It could be marketing within the company. And so you can use videos within your company to communicate with your team instead of email, which is text. So that's one thing. Is video is the most powerful. It gets 300% more return. I think I can't remember the exact stats, it's 80 to 90% of people will retain more information if there's video, which is great from a sales perspective. It's great from an internal communication perspective. So there's many benefits to videos. As far as industries, those vary so greatly and widely. The industries that are using video, I would say, which is ironic, is like realtors are using videos. They're using some platforms that allow you to do these personalized videos, which is really, really powerful. And we use those for our customers to help build those relationships and our prospects. I say ironic is because from an industry perspective, their back end and how they run things hasn't been updated. So, it still takes 30 days to do stuff. And, I think we'll see some of those things change. Financial services, again, very old school entrenched industry with the regulations. So I think we're going to see some changes in there that will lively up the marketing that some of these companies have. Let's see. The other thing I would say is lesser known that a lot of people don't know about as far as marketing is, speaking books, right? You've got a book. Mine should be out here in the next few weeks. So speaking about that, getting in front of audiences to speak is a great way to market. So if you can't do it in person now, then doing it over the web and making those presentations interesting. You can't be a talking head. And let's see what else. Books. And then the other thing for marketing, and it's also a revenue stream, but I've seen a lot of people now, because they've got some downtime, is go in and do some more passive or hands-off education. So if they wanted to create like an education series and put it out there. So it's a great way to market, because sometimes you can make that free, and so that's free marketing. So those are kind of the 2 or 3 areas that I see that are really the best return on investment for marketing.
Okay. Yeah, the law industry is no different. We're very entrenched in our ways. Even the rules of ethical conduct or professional conduct are very strict. Luckily, I don't know if you know this, but Utah did a study about their rules of professional conduct, and they now have a task force, tasked with improving those. The 3 main areas being, legal marketing, being able to share fees or pay for referrals, and what's the other one? Having non-attorneys own a law firm. So it's pretty cool. It's called the Utah Sandbox, and so they're experimenting with that. I know a couple of companies who are in there. With the whole idea is to increase access to justice, because tech allows us to scale and reduce costs significantly, so we can reduce the price. And so I think that's a very interesting thing, and I'm hoping that does open up more opportunities for us with marketing and other areas within the legal community.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think there's some accounting is the same thing, right? So I'm a former accountant, and the same thing. It's like, the standards haven't changed with the times. They're still 20 years ago, and you can see business owners are struggling with it, but you can also see the consumers, because the consumers don't get that more, I'll call it intimate marketing, right? So it's very standard. We do this, and that's boring, and people don't want that anymore. So I guess the other thing too is marketing's more personalized now. So some of those industries will catch up, but you're going to see a lot more personalization in marketing. And so you'll have contextual marketing, right? Which means that now if you go to a website, Blake, and it's a site that you visit all the time, but now, you're visiting it on a Sunday or a weekend as opposed to during the week, you're going to see ads and stuff that are a little bit more in flavor with that. So let's just say it's a restaurant. So maybe during the week, a restaurant ad to you might be shown up as, hey, Blake, come in and get a quick lunch, right? We know you're busy, you're shopping, right? On the weekend, it might be like, hey, why don't you come in with your buddies and hang out for a football game, or bring your spouse in for my dinner? So that's contextual, so it's way more personalized. So that's definitely coming. So with AI or artificial intelligence, that's going to happen. And so those industries that are still way far behind are just going to catch up to where we're at today. All the other industries are already moving forward, right? So we're seeing that with even restaurants right now. They're really thinking out of the box because they have to. They're forced to. They're, in a corner. And so with restraints becomes great innovation and creativity. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, you're right. The few people who are within those industries that are archaic, that are willing to push the box and get up to the front, I think they're going to see significant results. That's what I'm hoping to do, with taking advantage of doing the podcast and the videos and those kind of things. And we'll see. All right, so let's switch to the other side. What are the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they try to market themselves or their businesses?
Yeah, unfortunately I see a lot more of these. So I see, well, first, if we just kind of start at the top, so we see the business, but we see the owner not doing anything as well to stand out, right? So you're a perfect example of what to do, which is you've got your business and you do marketing for that, but then you also do it for kind of yourself, which helps both. And that really is not happening very much at all. So the owners are not doing that. Even at the highest level, I would say that people aren't tying their marketing to their overall business strategy. They are still thinking in silos. And so everything has to tie together. And I don't see that. People think, oh, I have to do marketing, and they automatically associate that with social media. And social media is one of the many ways to do it. But if you don't tie your marketing strategy into your overall business strategy, you're going to miss the mark. You're going to waste marketing dollars. One of the other biggest areas I see is that people don't track and measure their marketing results. So not only they're not clear about what they're doing, but then they don't track it. And so really, hey, if you're going to waste dollars, just throw them at me because I'll take them. Because if you're not going to measure them and get results, it's like throwing money out, right? So that's one. 2, 3, I would say another one is they're showing no authority. So right now, Google is one of the major players between, Google search and YouTube is the second largest search engine. But I think there's going to be some of the other players coming up here soon. Don't rule out some of those other search engines and ways to find you. But regardless of who's up there, I think that all of the activities are going to link back to what Google calls EAT, EAT, and it's an acronym for expertise, authority, and trust. And what we're doing, podcast and video and everything else, that medium is a way to show expertise, authority, and trust. And so that does have to happen because I think it gets to the personalization. So if you think about how marketing has really transformed over the years, and, people got websites and then they got it up and that was good enough, and then they've got to make them more interesting and more mobile friendly. And now not only the websites, but the content. So, you can't just do the same boring content and blogs anymore. You have to make it more interesting. And so showing your expertise, and if people aren't doing that, then that's a shame. And what I see typically is they're reusing these really same boring blogs, like stuff that you and I honestly could probably go create, or anybody off the street could create. There's no expertise showing in there. So there's no way to know, like, and trust them. Probably the other way that I see people failing in marketing or making mistakes is that they only rely in one area of the marketing mix. So I kind of think of marketing mix as a pie. And if you divide it into 4 pieces, the 4 pieces are owned. So your website, your podcast, the things that you actually own and control. And then there is paid, the stuff that you have to pay for. So that could be any type of ads, Facebook, Google, YouTube, any other platforms for ads. And then there's leveraged or borrow, and that's where word of mouth would fall in. So you're leveraging other people's network, goodwill. I classify it also as free, but there's a little bit of a barrier to entry. So maybe some criteria or relationship or a little bit of a dollar to set up. And then the last one is free, which is more social media marketing. So if you don't have at least one in each of those 4 areas, you're at risk. And most people, if you've been in business for a while, you're only relying on one. And the reason that fails you is because you don't understand how to market. And, you can't just create marketing all at once and go, oh my God, I need to get on Facebook, because you don't understand how to get it set up. It's not an overnight thing. So, not having the right marketing mix, and you can't just start marketing right away. It's a path. And I would say those are probably the 4 or 5 biggest areas that I've seen. I don't know. You're a business owner. I don't know if you've heard of any of those from other business owners, but I hear about those all the time and I see them.
Yeah, I don't talk too much about marketing with other business owners, but I'd say another one that I've seen is people giving up on something too quickly as well. So, you do 1 month of paid advertising and then you stop because nothing came in. Well, it takes a little bit of time for that to get going. Especially, with Google, the longer you have that ad running, the more efficient and better results and better placement it's going to get. So it's not necessarily going to be an immediate return, but you do want to track it and make sure it actually is producing something, I would say. But yeah, it's not not just a, 1 month and we're done because it didn't do anything.
Or 1 week. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you've got to do all this stuff for at least for 90 days just to work out the kinks. And again, it's part of a whole big process, right? So, I mean, it's, you got to get the ad up and you got to get it approved, and then you need to make sure the ad converts, and then you need to make sure that whatever action you're having converts. And then you have to tweak that process along the way. So it's a minimum of 90 days. So you're right, absolutely, the amount of time. But I think that if you've done advertising and marketing, then you sort of get that continuum and that duration. And if you haven't, then you don't. And again, it's like you can't just start marketing going, oh my God, I need to start marketing and start. I mean, you have to keep your hands in the game. And so, I see that with companies that are typically at least 12 to 15 years, in business. 3 to 5 years, no, they're still rocking and rolling, but, I would make sure that people always do it, because again, if you pull your hand out of that pulse, it's really hard to stop. And yes, I know word of mouth, but there's other ways, right? So, right now, if you've got word of mouth, you're probably struggling because you don't even have a website. I mean, I met an owner a couple months ago. They didn't even have a website. Like, how are you going to refer people? Like, they think it's all about them, but it's not. I mean, it's also a way that people can refer you, and you're not making it easy. Not everybody wants to pick up the phone. So you need to make sure that you have multiple ways that your customers can get to you, not just the web or not just the phone or not just text, however you want to, communicate.
Yeah, and I'd say, I was the part of that process. My dad was the owner of the firm for years, and he was anti any advertising other than word of mouth, or I think we had one picture in the phone book, which, when he started 20 plus years ago, yeah, that was fine, but there's been so many other avenues. And so when I took over and bought him out in June, that's when I started the marketing, and it took 6 months before things really started coming together, because it is a very long process to get it all going and get it consistent and figure out the systems and everything else. So once that hit, it was great. Then it started rocking and rolling. It was good, but that's because I put in a lot of time over those 6 months to get things going. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and if you're not willing to roll up your sleeves, and oh, by the way, and still run your business, so I mean, now you have to still deliver, and then you still have to, you have to work in it and on it, then you're going to have to hire somebody. And the thing is, when you hire somebody, they're going to ask you the questions that you don't know, and like, who are you going to target? What's the problem? Like, you kind of know, but again, right, it takes you a minimum, like, to just start that process. And still, I mean, you're still going to start tweaking it, right? Because that's one client avatar. Like, you've got to meet them where they're at. So definitely make sure you focus on one first, get that nailed down before you move to any. But yeah, I mean, it's I always say that what are the few things that you can't just start overnight? Like, you can't start networking. Like, that has to always happen, so that when you need something or a resource, then you can reach out to them, right? You can't just, oh my God, I need to call somebody and ask for a favor. Same thing with marketing. You can't just all of a sudden start. Same thing with credit, right? You just can't say, oh my God, okay, I've got credit. There's a few things that have to always keep going. You have to build up that goodwill. You have to build up that knowledge, that expertise, that everything. You can't create a baby, and you can't bring 9 people together to make a baby in 1 month. It still takes 9 months.
Right. So we talked about this a little bit already with stuff that you're seeing with the AI being part of marketing, but any other new trends that you're seeing, or different avenues that are dying off that we're not using anymore?
Well, so mail. So sometimes mail may or may not work depending on your industry and who you're targeting. If you're a B2B, right, a business-to-business person right now, it's probably not working because nobody's in their office, or not many people are in their office. If you're a consumer, it could work. It depends, right? So people aren't used to getting something in the mail, and there's not a lot of mail, especially right now, that you would really stand out if you mailed somebody. I would say a trend. So right now we're kind of in a crisis of pandemic, but again, this could be any type of crisis, is don't stop marketing. And so it's not really what's dying. I would just say don't stop, because this is a time that you still want to be in front of your customers. And so, right now we're finding Facebook ads are getting approved within minutes, which never happened before. And the rates are cheaper because nobody's advertising. And so this is a great time to do that. So I guess everything's cyclical, right? So whatever you did before, maybe go back and revisit it. So mail, may or may not hit your industry. So that might be a place that either is dying or could be, going up. I would say, I touched on this earlier, those boring blogs that almost anybody that with some education could go, do themselves. You can't have that boring stuff anymore. You actually have to really create something that shows you, EAT, expertise, authority, and trust. And then I would say I still see this. It's not a new trend. It's just a trend that's consistent, which is people aren't updating their websites and or their social media. And so that, again, when you get shared or somebody says, oh, my gosh, you've got to go try Blake. Well, you don't have this. Your stuff is active, but or try somebody else, and they go check you out and do a web search, and then they find your website and it still has, the 1980s look, or you haven't posted a blog, and then they go look at you on Facebook and you haven't posted since 2016. Like, that is very off-putting to people. In fact, a lot of people won't. They'll just, they might call up their friend and say, hey, this person doesn't look like they're in business. Are you sure? So I would say it's not really a new trend. It's just a trend that I still see consistently, that people don't update that stuff where people can find them.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say, when the recession or any downturn or crisis, when everybody else is pulling out their marketing dollars, that's when you want to spend them, because you'll get way more bang for your buck. It's been my experience. We just kept advertising, actually increased some advertising costs, and it's been, I'm the only one in front of people because no one else is spending money, so it's a great time to do it.
Yeah, and your message will change, right? So it's not always buy me, buy me, buy me. Now, right. Your message may change. It could be, hey, here's a time, think about this. Or, one of those passive revenue drivers or funnels could be, hey, we're offering free education, get them in now and offer it to them for free. So you could be giving and you could be messaging in a total different way, but you're still in their eyes, in front of them, and you're still front of mind. And so that's really what it's about. And I'm glad to hear somebody else is doing it.
Yeah, I got that from Grant Cardone's book, I think 10X. He talked about that during the '08 recession. He cut his own salary and just spent all that money on advertising because everybody else cut back, and that's what propelled him to go forward. So I like that idea. All right, let's talk about how people can find a good marketing expert, somebody who's trusted. What are things they should look for, questions they should ask, what are red flags they should avoid, all those things?
So because I'm a process person, and you don't typically find this in marketing, I like a process or a framework. So because we do management consulting, and I say we're modern management consulting, we're framework without the fluff. We still use frameworks because it does guide you in a process. It gets you results, but we're really, really nimble and smart about how we use frameworks. I don't see that in a lot of industries. And marketing, I love, but there's a lot of creative people that don't follow a framework. And so I would actually make sure they have some sort of documented process or framework, and they're a super, super creative person, because that also means that they're also not going to track your results, and you really need those metrics to make sure that your marketing campaigns are doing what you want them to do, which again links back to not only your marketing strategy, but your overall business strategy. And in the marketing world, I see a lot of creative people. Like, I've been to the American Marketing Association meetings here, and I remember, some of the folks were talking, and like, oh, so how's the return? And they're like, huh? You've got to figure out the return on those. So if you're getting the deer in the headlights look about return or metrics or something, I would say you probably need to dig a little bit deeper, because again, it comes down to the marketing dollars, and you want to make sure that you're really spending them wisely. If somebody only talks about social media, social media is one of an infinite number of ways to market, and you still have to do it smartly. Posting Blake, for you as an attorney, posting a picture about a cat doesn't really relate to your business unless you heavily focused on, maybe veterinarians or something. But social media is not marketing. It's a way to get it out, and you have to be really smart about it. But if they only talk about social media, there's a bunch of things you can say. The other thing I've seen too, in general, we talked about industries, is that while some industry experts are good, they also could be a hindrance, because they aren't looking at new ideas. And so, you see this in a lot of niches. You see it in attorneys, and you see it in a lot of the professional, actually any type of services. You see it in home repairs and HVAC and anything, and you've got these specialists in there. It's a double-edged sword. They might have the marketing dollars, or they might have the marketing dialed in, but sometimes I think that they're too common. I think that there's no creativity, and I think that there's no way for you to stand out. And I mean, I can see that, for example, I was doing research, it's been a few years ago, on some accountants, just even in Las Vegas. And I went to, I don't know, just say 20 of them, and I could tell 6 of them were using the same service because their website looked the same, and guess what? They have the exact same blog post. And so you don't want that, because when somebody is shopping around for you, they're going to see that. And it would have been so easy for the owner and the principals or the partners or, anybody else that had that responsibility in the company to literally just do a video on those posts, and it would have been 1,000 times more interesting. And so there's many factors about looking at it, but I would say, be really clear what you want to solve, and they should also guide you. And they should be able to guide you through helping tie that in. And not only they can't be an expert just in marketing. They really do need to understand not only, the industry, but they need to understand business and how it fits in. And so we talk about experts, and the definition of experts to me is changing. It did used to be somebody that was purely into marketing, but you can't do that anymore. You truly need to understand business and sales and tech and HR. Like, you need to have a good breadth of understanding of all of that. And even as an attorney, right, I mean, you've got to have a breadth knowledge of not only, certain areas, but kind of, I call it, upflow and downflow. So anything in that whole process you need to be familiar with so that you understand the impact. And some of it relates back to strategy, but there's so many factors out there. So there's a few that I can provide for guidelines. How's that?
Yeah, I'd say I have always looked for people who are outside of my industry when I'm looking to hire someone for, marketing or coaching or whatever it is, because well, they might be good in that niche, but they're not bringing things from different industries. I like having someone who's seeing all across the board, because they're saying, hey, this works over here. Why don't we try this in your industry? And that might, bring some great results, because you're the only one doing that, because you're the only one bringing it into your industry. So I think that's great advice. My experience with hiring marketers is, if they're just the creative type, don't track the numbers. And I think it's with any professional, we repeat this with almost every guest, is somebody who's actually going to call you back. It's unfortunate. That's always an issue, but somebody who's going to communicate and actually, keep you up to date with what's going on. And then there's always the gut check. Does it feel right? Can you get along with this person? Not necessarily that you have to, but is it going to be in a relationship where you can be honest and open and actually communicate? And I think that's a big thing. So we covered a lot today. Any key things that we jumped over that you think our listeners really need to hear about marketing or strategy that we didn't get to?
No, I think we hit a lot of topics. I would just say it really goes back to that strategy. So, so your strategy should be done annually at a minimum. It should be done anytime there is a major change within your company or outside of your company. So, for example, within your company, if you have a change of ownership, if you have a key player leaving, and so you changed ownership a few years ago. I've got a company in town, they changed ownership. We did a strategy for them because now you've got new players that have financial responsibility to the company. So, do that. Key players leave, somebody retires. You hire somebody brand new comes in, and they're in that leadership, ownership role. You need to bring them in, and you really need to refocus and go, okay, what's our new approach? If there's any events that happen internally or externally, so maybe you buy another company. Maybe you're thinking about starting another project. Do we do a website? Do we, roll out a CRM program? Again, that's the best time to do a strategy. I was called into a company after they had implemented a system, and we said, hey, next time you do this, make sure you call us. And so when they said, okay, we're ready to do a financial system. Can you come in and do a strategy for us? And we went through that system and we said, based on the feedback from all your leaders, you guys need to do an HR system and not financial. And so bring in somebody before you do that to make sure it's the right thing to do at the right time, because again, you guys might have other needs, and maybe doing a website project is going to be more beneficial right now than hopping into a new trade show or hiring a big high-level executive or team member. So really tying it back to that strategy. So there's internal events, external events, and players. So and make sure it's documented. Make sure it's written down. So even if you're a solopreneur, it can't be just in the head, because there's a process to take it from the head to the paper. So make sure it's written down, and also put it in kind of a roadmap format. So if you just think about maybe in the columns, you would have a timeline and put some high-level tasks. Make sure that you have it, because you can start to visually see if you're going to run into any issues. So I did this with one of my clients. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not going to work. Okay, oh, I forgot to tell you this. Okay, so there's that visual part of the strategy. And so people think it's fluffy, and it's not, because that amount that you invest will actually tell you the projects that you're going to do, or initiatives, or software. It's also going to tell the people, the type of people that you're going to hire. Or do you make that hire, or do you put those dollars towards something else, because based on your strategy? And so communicate that out to the people that need to know at the certain level, so everybody's on the same page. But now, as business owners and leaders within your company, people always say, what should I concentrate on? I'm like, well, you have your strategy and your goals and objectives. Everything that you should do every day should be wrapped around that. And so that, if you map it down to your daily, that's really what you need to do. And then if you tie it back to your marketing, all of your efforts need to be tying back to that overall strategy in some way or another.
Yeah, I personally like the timeline thing. That's what I do. I just redid it again because I've had some things change as far as when I want to get stuff done. So once I had the timeline, I realized, okay, this has to be done by this date and this one by this date if we're going to stay on track to hit that. And before I would have not, I'd been like, okay, yeah, we've still got 2 years to get to this goal. And it's like, oh, no, this has to happen now. We actually have to be a lot more urgent about it. So I like that as well. All right, how can people get in contact with you about marketing or strategy?
Yeah, so we're at onlinemarketinginbox.com, and I would love to give away, the top mistakes people make for, videos. I'll put a couple of resources on that page. So if we want to send them to onlinemarketinginbox.com/trustedEPA, we'll put some goodies on there that people might be interested in. Some of them more tactical, but at least you can see our website, you can see the strategy, and anything else. And just happy to have anybody call with some questions, schedule some time with me. However we can help them out, we're glad to.
Okay, yeah, and I'll make sure to put the website in the show notes. And if you're all right, I'll put your email down there as well, so people can reach out and get in touch with you. Kim, I appreciate you being on the show. Lots of great information there, so thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it, and happy to help out. Thanks.
Okay. And to all our listeners, as always, please like, subscribe, follow us so that you get the latest content. Give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. And if you have any suggestions on what we should cover next time, please reach out to me, and we'll see if we can't make that happen. So with that, we'll sign it off. Until next time.